Good evening. So I'm going to start off tonight telling just a quick story about myself. So a couple weeks ago, I was out on a Saturday. It was a beautiful day. My girlfriend and I were out running errands. And I think we were at the second or third shop looking at trying to find the perfect set of plant potters for my indoor plants. And, I had not had breakfast that day. And all of a sudden, I just started to kind of get run down and started to get frustrated. I started to get really snappy, and I just was generally less enthusiastic about the process of finding the perfect plant potters than I was when we started off that morning. And so after my second or third extremely sharp, snarky comment, my girlfriend kind of knowingly smiled and sympathetically reached into her bag and grabbed a granola bar and gave it to me. And, it turns out I was really hungry, or what she likes to call hangry. So, yeah, everybody, okay, so the laughs tell me that everyone's familiar with this term, right? Hangry, hungry, angry. Well, I am an expert. And so I had this granola bar, and I was fine. But I personally chose that morning, or maybe wrongly, poorly, to not have breakfast. Because, we were in a hurry, it was a good day, we were going to go out for brunch or whatever. So, but I made that personal choice. Who in the room had breakfast this morning? So pretty much everybody, most important meal of the day, right? Been hearing that our whole lives. So I know what it's like to feel hungry. Most people in the room know what it's like to feel hungry. You get frustrated, you get those pains. Based on your life experience that you've had, based on the life experience that I've had, I kind of understand what my body's trying to tell me when I'm hungry, all right? So over the course of my work with No Kid Hungry, I think a lot about kids and how food and food availability impacts kids. And one of the things that strikes me, I know how I get when I'm hungry. One of the things that strikes me really frequently is what does that mean to a kid? 7, 8 years old, sitting in class. Maybe they didn't have breakfast. Maybe they didn't have dinner. How do they interpret what their body is trying to tell them? How do they interpret those signals and those symptoms? And it floors me to think that even me, as 30-year-old Jon Barry, 37 actually, sorry. 37-year-old Jon Barry with this vast life experience that I've had, I still don't always immediately recognize when I'm hungry. And so what does that 7 or 8-year-old girl sitting in class think? How is she going to respond? So while I'm giving my talk tonight, I want you to keep in mind that 7-year-old girl or that 8-year-old boy that's sitting in class that might be hungry, and how are they feeling? How is that going to impact their ability to learn and grow? So No Kid Hungry is the premier campaign of an organization called Share Our Strength. And Share Our Strength was started over on the East Coast in 1984 in response to the famine in Ethiopia. Over the course of the last couple decades, the organization has grown and evolved over a few iterations, and today the primary focus is ending child hunger in the United States. And we have a saying, every kid, healthy food, every day. And those are the things, that's what I think about every day when I get up in the morning. Every kid, healthy food, every day. How do we make that happen? And this is why. In the United States, 1 in 5 kids wakes up every day and faces hunger. To one degree or another, right? 1 in 5, 20% of all the kids in the United States. In Missouri, 50% of the kids that are going to school may face some degree of food insecurity. You may ask, well, what's food insecurity and what's hunger? Well, everybody in the room kind of knows what hunger is. Well, how I define food insecurity is not having regular access to nutritious meals. I think that's safe. Can everybody agree there? Not having regular access to nutritious meals, food insecure. Well, 50% of Missouri's kids are eligible for a free and reduced meal at school. So if you take that another step, it's not hard to imagine, at least not for me, it's not hard to imagine that those kids that are eligible for that free and reduced meal, well, maybe they don't have access. Maybe they don't have the economic means, or their families don't have the economic means to regularly provide them consistent access to nutritious meals. That's how I look at food insecurity in Missouri. No Kid Hungry Missouri is working all over the state with community organizations, community leaders, business leaders, organizations, and individuals to break down the barriers and implement common sense solutions to make sure that kids have regular access to nutritious meals. And we do that by focusing on the USDA reimbursable meals programs, primarily promoting school breakfast, and specifically breakfast after the bell, which we're going to talk about today, but also looking at increasing availability of after-school and summer meals. But today, I'm going to focus on how breakfast can change lives and the impact that it can have every day for kids in school. Breakfast is a big deal. We already talked. Everybody in the room, or pretty close to everybody in the room, had breakfast today, right? It's the most important meal of the day. We've been hearing that our entire lives. It's beaten into us from a young age. But we never really think about why. We kind of understand, but for a kid, for a student, what does it mean? Well, this is what it means. We did a study a few years ago with Deloitte, and this is what we found. Kids that eat breakfast at school miss 1.5 less days every year. Well, you might think to yourself, 1.5 days, that's not that big a deal, right? For one or two kids, and you're right, it's probably not that big a deal. It's not going to impact the overall trajectory of their education, right? But kids that are in school more often are going to do better on tests. But what you may not know is the other effects that attendance can have. A lot of school funding comes from attendance. So if you multiply that 1.5 days out across the hundreds of students in a school or the thousands of students in a school district, then that can mean a lot for that school district. And then that funding, based on that attendance, can then go back into that educational program and then and impact that child in an even greater way. So another way school breakfast impacts kids, they'll score 17.5% higher on standardized math tests. So in Missouri, we ranked 29th in 29th out of the 50 states in student performance. In math alone, Missouri's 8th graders, only 31% of those 8th graders score at or above level of proficient in math. So what could that 17.5% mean to a lot of those kids? It could be pretty significant. But here's the big one. This is the one that really encompasses the meaning. Kids that eat breakfast at school are 20% more likely to graduate from high school. So in the United States, graduating from high school is our first big milestone. That's the first big thing that we do as children transitioning into adults, is graduating from high school. 20% more likely just for eating school breakfast. So let that sink in. What does that mean for a kid? Kids that graduate from high school make $8,000 to $11,000 more than their peers that don't. Kids that graduate from high school are more likely to go on to attain even higher degrees of education, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorates, and then professional certifications, professional degrees. Communities with better educated workforces attract more business, which means more economic development, which means more money for working families, which means better outcomes for the entire community, which means better health and educational outcomes for the next generation of kids. That's the power of school breakfast. So you're probably thinking to yourself right now, well, it's great that we serve breakfast in so many schools then. And you're right, it is a great thing. But there's a problem. Traditionally, breakfast in schools is served before the bell. So when I went to elementary school and high school, school started between 8 and 9 o'clock, depending on where I was. Some schools start at 7 o'clock or 7:30. If breakfast is served before that, that means 6:15 or 6:30 for breakfast, right? That kid has to get there to get that meal. So a lot of times that also means that it's going to be served before the buses get there, right? And so if that bus is on time, maybe that kid's lucky and has 5 to 10 minutes to grab something to eat if they're hungry. But if that bus is late, maybe they don't get breakfast at all or any opportunity to get breakfast. And what does that mean then for those kids that may not have access to nutritious meals? So, and the last big one that we think about are those kids who don't have that opportunity to have breakfast because of economic means or their parents are working or whatever those are. We think about those kids, and oftentimes those kids that eat breakfast at school, they're stigmatized as being poor. And so if you're a kid, even if you get to school early enough to have breakfast, are you going to choose to have breakfast and potentially be made fun of and stigmatized? Or are you going to skip breakfast and maybe stick it out until lunch? What are you going to do? So unfortunately, a lot of times kids make that choice, for better or for worse, to skip breakfast, even if they have the opportunity. So what we want to do is we want to change. We want to turn that upside down. We want to take breakfast away from the traditional model and move it to a way that it's normal to eat breakfast at school, right? Take it out of the cafeteria and make it part of the school day. And the way that we do that is by promoting breakfast after the bell. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Taking breakfast out of the cafeteria, away from that place where it is traditionally served, and into the classrooms, into the hallways, into the gyms, into the courtyards. Put it into the hands of kids in the places where they're most likely to consume it. All right? The first model that we promote is called breakfast in the classroom. And it's pretty simple. Breakfast is carted to the classroom. It's eaten there. The kids eat it there in the classroom. Maybe the teacher's taking roll. Maybe he's reading the announcements. Maybe the kids are just enjoying a meal with their friends in the morning before the school day gets started. I don't know when the last time you were in an elementary school classroom was, where they didn't serve breakfast after the bell. I see some smiles, so people know. It's crazy. Kids are nuts in the morning, right? So I challenge you to do this. I challenge you to go to a classroom where they serve breakfast traditionally. Then go to a classroom where they serve breakfast in the classroom as part of the school day. It's a different world. And I see it almost every week. Those kids that have breakfast as the first part of the school day in the classroom, they're calm. They're ready to learn. When that bell rings and the teacher's ready to go, those kids are ready to go. They are engaged. They are waiting to learn. The second model that we promote is called grab and go. Exactly what it sounds like. Kids come in the morning, they grab a meal, maybe it's in a bag, maybe it's in a box, and they take it to where they want to go. Works better for slightly older kids that have a little bit more responsibility. You know, as kids get older, they want to hang out with their friends in the morning. They want to do the things their friends are doing. And their friends may not be in the cafeteria. Their friends might be in the gym or the courtyard. So grab and go, kids grab that breakfast, and they take it to where they're most likely to consume it. Courtyard, gym, classroom. The third thing we promote is called second chance breakfast. And it's exactly, again, what it sounds like. It's for older kids that are on the period system, middle school, high school. And it's an opportunity for them, it's a second chance for them to have breakfast when they're actually hungry. When I was a teenager, I was barely awake at 7:30 in the morning. I managed to get to school most of the time, and I think most of you probably did as well. But I wasn't hungry, right? I would get hungry at 9:30, 10:30, whenever that was, after first period. And so what this is an opportunity for kids to eat between first and second period when they're actually hungry, and most likely to consume that meal and really need it and get them through to lunch. So this is how we change breakfast. Is breakfast after the bell gives us the opportunity to get all kids eating, to normalize breakfast and make it part of the school day. So how can you help? You can help me help those kids by promoting our message. Be an ambassador for Missouri's kids and promote these concepts within your communities. So you're in the community of Rolla now, get out there. I challenge you to go and see what's happening. If you get the opportunity and it makes sense, go see what's happening in those schools and talk to your social networks. Share our information. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and share our message. That's what you can do. You can help me help Missouri's kids by being an ambassador for them. So I'm Jon Barry with No Kid Hungry Missouri. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Thank you very much.